This podcast is hosted on podhome.fm, the most modern podcast hosting platform. Podhome offers unlimited episodes and podcasts, and unlimited use of Podhome AI, which generates transcripts, clips, chapters, title suggestions, show notes, and much more. And all of that for just $15.99 a month or $185 per year. That's a steal. So go to podhome.fm and start your 30-day trial now. And enjoy the show with Joe.
Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
Alrighty. Well, hey folks, this is Joe Rooz, and it is great to be with you once again, transmitting live, of course, from the Asylum. And as always, doing the very best we can to bring you the best quality talk radio we could muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the show, folks. We've got a great one for you tonight. Tonight, we are going to be diving into probably one of the most important conversations of our time. Artificial intelligence, consciousness, faith, and the future of humanity. Joining us tonight is going to be author Andrew Gillsmith, whose novel, Our Lady of the Artilects, has sold nearly 20,000 copies and is now being re-released through Logos Rising Press. Andrew brings a unique blend of religious studies, technology, publishing, and science fiction to some of today's biggest questions. Are we creating tools, or are we creating something much more significant? And we're going to find that out tonight. But before we do that, we're going to take care of some of the usual housekeeping that we do. So if you would, please head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. And when you get over there, look for the contact form. It's hidden up there in the pancake in the upper right corner of the page. Just open that thing up, pop open the window, send us over a message. Let us know whatever's on your heart, whatever's on your mind, any questions, comments, cares, or concerns that you might have. Maybe you have a complaint. You shouldn't at this point have any complaints whatsoever, but you might. You can send it to us there. Maybe you have a suggestion for a guest or a particular topic you'd like us to discuss. Send it on over to us. We would love to hear from you guys. But look, if you're anything like me, you hate contact forms. Why? CAPTCHA and the reCAPTCHA, the crosswalks, the puppies, the bicycles, the cars, all that stuff. Hate it. Can't stand it. That's why we have the email address. You can always email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. And also, if you'd like, you could also leave a comment down below there on Rumble. And, of course, if you're still watching on YouTube for whatever reason, you can leave one on YouTube as well. We make sure that we check all of our comments and respond to them as appropriate. All right. Also, please don't forget that this is a live show, weeknights, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Also, don't forget our Sunday show, our Sunday Bible study show, every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to seeing you guys there, and hopefully, okay, got something on my shirt there. All right, got it. We look forward to getting you guys on the Sunday Bible study, on the regular weeknight shows. They're really good stuff, so you got to come on over and check it all out. Also, very, very important is the whole idea of what they call algorithm. Algorithm. Algorithm is key to getting the show found. So please, if you would, make sure that you like the show, you subscribe to it, you share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. That way you'll help us get found. And that's the most important thing for us right now. So remember, like, subscribe, share the show with your friends, your family, and your followers. All right. Also, talking about algorithm, tonight's connection is courtesy of Podmatch. Now, why algorithm and Podmatch? Well, because Podmatch is basically Tinder for podcasters. It's really what it is. All right. The host puts together a profile. The guest puts together a profile. The algorithm puts it together, and then you match or pass, and then you get great shows. All right. Now, in reality, what Podmatch does, most podcast hosts and guests spend hours researching connections, coordinating interviews, and working on administrative tasks while really only spending more or less 10% of their time on what really matters, and that's bringing the audience impactful podcast episodes. What Podmatch does, it enables podcast guests and hosts to reclaim their time through automations and streamline processes so that they can focus on creating content that really does, in fact, serve their listeners. Now, if you want to find out more about it, just head over to podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's the link to our page. Take a look around. If you like it, sign up for it. You can sign up right through our page right there. And then you never know, you might end up being a guest on this show at some point, and we would love to have you. So check it out, podmatch.com/member/Joe. That's podmatch.com/member/Joe. All the links will be in the show notes after the show. All right. Now, tonight, we're joined by Andrew Gillsmith, science fiction author whose work explores some of the biggest questions facing humanity: artificial intelligence, consciousness, faith, transhumanism, which is really scary when you think about it, and what it actually means to be human in an increasingly technological world. Now, Andrew studied religious studies, built a career in digital media technology, publisher development, and is the author of Our Lady of the Artilects, a novel that blends cyberpunk, AI, neuroscience, philosophy, and Catholic theology into a story that asks whether intelligence, consciousness, and even the soul can survive the technological future. Now, the book has originally sold over 20,000 copies independently and is being re-released by Logos Rising Press. And tonight, we're going to go beyond the book to discuss AI, human identity, faith, technology, and the future of humanity itself. Andrew, wow, that's a lot. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate being here. Looking forward to our conversation.
It's great to have you, and I really do appreciate it. We had a brief chat before the show started, so really appreciated that. Got to know you a little bit better, and this is going to be a really great conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Now, I kind of want to just get right into it. You weren't trained as a computer scientist. You kind of came from religious studies background. How did that path eventually lead you into science fiction?
Oh boy, that's a good one. So I grew up in a religious family. We were talking about this before the show, right? Mm-hmm. I think you and I kind of met in the middle, going in opposite directions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I grew up Catholic and eventually became Protestant. And I grew up in a Protestant family, Methodist family in the Midwest, and went through some stuff as a teenager. My mom passed away from brain cancer right about the time that I was going to college. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
I was angry at everybody, and especially at God. And so I kind of went through this, angry atheist agnostic phase. And one of the things I did was I wanted to study religion because I wanted to disprove it, right? I wanted to kind of extinguish my own faith, and I couldn't do it.
I want to interrupt you for 1 second. Just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Do you know how interesting of a comment that is? That you tried to disprove it and came to faith. There are so many people that I know of, both historically and personally, that took the same exact path, did everything they could to disprove it, and ended up walking away with faith and believing.
I absolutely believe that, right? And one of the things I do believe, just because of my own personal journey, and I think it's reflected in the book, is that if you're sincerely seeking God, right, truly sincerely seeking God, even if you have problems with God, you're going to find him.
Absolutely.
Right? Eventually.
Absolutely.
To me, I understand agnosticism. I really do. I understand people who grapple with doubt. And I actually believe, and I think it's defensible from a theological perspective. I think it's probably defensible from both the Catholic and the Protestant theological perspective that, doubt has a kind of holiness too. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if it's sincere,
yes.
Doubt and faith are to me much more closely related than either one of them is related to certainty. Right? I mean, if God just appeared, right in front of us as a pillar of fire and smoke, well, okay, that kind of takes faith out of the equation, doesn't it?
Yes,
that's
exactly.
just a matter of direct perception.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something completely different. And God has done that at times in history, which is wonderful and beautiful. But yeah, so for me, like I kind of just went on this journey, right? And studied religion, hoping to disprove religion, couldn't quite do it. Went into technology in the 90s, kind of in the boom boom go go early internet era. And ultimately kind of did some graduate study work in data science. And for me, like there's always been these kind of two sides of me, personally, that the faith side, and the seeking after God, and the sort of like rigorous data science side that's like, I need evidence, I want to be empirical about this. And for a long time I felt like those two sides were at war with each other. And ultimately what I found is they're not, like God made both.
Mm-hmm.
God gave me both.
Yes.
And it was through both that I found my way back to him. And so a lot of the book is, I think, kind of rooted in that, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to something you said too. It is biblical and it is theologically accurate that, and you find this in Romans chapter 1 actually, that God obligates himself that if a man, and I say man is men and women, if man is legitimately, diligently searching, God has obligated himself to provide the answer.
Yep.
And you find that again in Romans chapter 1. So it is biblical. It is a theological principle that God will provide the answer if you are seriously, legitimately pursuing knowing who he is. And you have examples of that all throughout Scripture. You have Cornelius in the book of Acts, was searching, praying to an unknown God, and God provided him an answer. Sent to somebody along his way, right? So he sent Peter. So it is factual that does actually take place. God will provide the solution to your question. You just have to be patient. And that's the trick. That's because God doesn't work on our timetable. He works on his own.
That's the hard thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Earlier today, I was talking to a friend who's going through some stuff, and made a comment that her partner, her husband, I should say, her husband is in a situation where he is learning patience, and I told her, I said, well, that's the whole point, is that tribulation worketh patience. That's what the Scripture says. God puts us through things so that we learn patience in relying on him and waiting on him. So, it's just the way it works. You got to have patience. Got to take your time and realize, look, this is out of my hands, out of my control. God's in control. I just got to sit back and let him do it.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, I think the far more dangerous position to be in spiritually is to stop seeking.
Agreed.
To kind of declare the whole issue moot and obsolete, and live your life as if it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and there's a great book out there. The title says it all. It's I don't have enough faith to be an atheist.
Right.
Yeah,
no. I mean, being an atheist requires a level of commitment and certainty that is rather extreme. I mean, far more so, I would say, than being a Christian.
Yeah, I agree with
you. We're permitted doubt. We're permitted
Yes.
to struggle. I'm not so sure that's true on the other side.
I know. No, you can't. No. I mean, if you're going to put your faith into Lady Luck chance and superintendents, I don't. You got to show me something, buddy.
Well, so that that ultimately what you just said there, it like kind of ties back to the original question you asked me, which is like, why did you write the book? Well, right. I've always been a science fiction fan. I grew up reading and fantasy. I mean, I of course love J.R.R. Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis, some of the great fantasy writers. But I've also always loved science fiction. Dune, Hyperion, Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun series, and like books, even like the one that ultimately I read that led me to do this was The Expanse, which is a space opera series by James S.A. Corey. It's terrific.
Oh yes.
Right. It was on TV. There was a campaign to save it, and it moved over to Amazon, and it's wonderful. But what I always found in reading science fiction is, I would read these books and I'd be so enthralled in the mystery of it. And then you get to the end of it and it's like, oh, well, that's depressing. Because the message was almost always the universe is vast and incomprehensible and indifferent to human life. and we live. It's governed by chance, and we're far more likely to be rendered extinct by an asteroid collision than see the face of God, because God is never in science fiction, right?
That's true.
Like never. I mean, it only in science fiction really is kind of a foil, right? Like usually the characters who are religious are stupid, manipulative, evil, don't believe anything themselves, right? And it's just like it's such a trope. It's so tiresome and boring, and overdone. And then on top of it all, left me as a reader feeling really cold. I'm like, that's not the kind of story I want to read. And frankly, I don't even think it's very good science. You know what I mean? Like increasingly, the best science that we have is saying that space-time is not fundamental. It's not the fundamental substrate of reality. There's something deeper, right? Which, again, I mean, we can get into this if you want, but I mean, even the most radical thinkers in the Enlightenment, right, who developed the whole scientific theory and philosophy of materialism, of physicalism, they knew that it was a lie. Diderot was the one that I'm thinking of in particular. He wrote the Encyclopedia, which was like it was the Bible of atheistic materialism, scientism. And he wrote in his private letters, we know that materialism is a lie. We know that all matter is infused with the principles of life and consciousness. And ultimately, this will be a dead end for us. But it is the best weapon that we have against the church, and therefore we must use it to its full extent to destroy the church.
Yeah,
so
very, very anti-Catholic.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
A known lie.
And you
now,
find that
250 years later, science is coming back and realizing, I mean, I can't remember the movie. I think it's The Watchmen. The guy says, like, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. Right. He's like in jail with a bunch of like criminals, and he like beats them all up or something. But it's like, I think what's happened is that the materialists have realized that they've locked themselves in a very small room.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is a fantastic point. And it's amazing, though, when you look back through history at all of these great thinkers. Now, I'm a fan of the Enlightenment period. I think that was a generation of thinkers and doers. Our founding of the country from the Enlightenment period. So I that's one of my favorite periods of time to study and to research. But if you really go out, like you said, if you research the people who came up with materialism and the esoterics and all of that, you realize that they didn't even believe what they were saying. Yeah. And even Charles Darwin famously on his deathbed recanted everything he said about, because he was a known atheist. He had problems. He grew up in a religious household that was kind of abusive, and it turned him off from the religious sides of life, the spiritual sides of life, and the whole point of him coming up with the origin of the species was to refute what his parents had been teaching him or taught him over the years. And on his deathbed, he acknowledged that none of it's true. Yeah, it's it makes you wonder. The motivation people are just so into that one-upmanship. They're so into tearing down the existing structure of things just for the sake of doing it. Some people want to watch the world burn. Right.
Well, I mean, again, we're Christians. It's like, what's the original sin? Right. It's pride.
As the deadliest sin, for sure. Absolutely, for sure. So a question then. So how does cyberpunk fit into all this?
Yeah, so I love cyberpunk.
Okay.
Just always loved it. Like Neil Stephenson was kind of a life-changing author for me. He wrote a book called Snow Crash. He's written a bunch too. 7 Eves, Dodge, Cryptonomicon. I mean, just a ton of great stuff. And he's really, really fun. He plays with language, he plays with history and philosophy and stuff. So I love cyberpunk, and I love it because it's gritty and real, right? It's not. This is not high fantasy. Everybody's noble and heroic, but it tries to put people in like sort of real world situations where you see the grit of human life and the struggle. Yeah. And I love that, right? And what I guess the little literary movement that I'm a part of, and it is small, it's growing, I think, but we call it incense punk. And it's
you have to explain that one.
Yeah, so it's basically taking like those cyberpunk ideals of like real life gritty human struggle, but like putting it in a religious context, right?
Okay.
Not pretending that religion doesn't exist and is not a factor at all in human society. I mean, it's the biggest factor in human society in many ways. And so I think that's just a real shortcoming of science fiction as a genre in general, right? Is like it's just like look over here. Don't look at 90% of the room. Like let's pretend that religion has not only doesn't exist in the future, but has never existed in history. But we're not, what we're doing in the incense punk movement. This is not, we're not being evangelical. We're not trying to preach so much as we are just trying to show like real human struggle and how do people use their faith and their involvement in religion or non-involvement in religion to figure out the purpose of their lives.
Interesting.
Right.
That's really interesting. I have to look into this a little bit more. I like this. I like what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I think it's really great to connect with other authors and readers who are into this sort of thing. And there's a surprising number of them out there.
So let me ask you this though, with artificial intelligence, when did questions about artificial intelligence, consciousness become more science fiction, become more than science fiction and start feeling more like real world issues to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was the very rapid development of large language models, right, of LLM. So ChatGPT, Claude, all of the ones that I'm sure your listeners are familiar with and use. I mean, I use them.
So
right?
Yeah.
That became really interesting to me because, like, knowing what I know about how they're built, right? Like, I don't have any illusions that this is conscious, right? Like, I don't, like, ChatGPT is not conscious.
Right.
Claude is not conscious, no matter what Richard Dawkins says. I don't know if you saw that, but like Richard Dawkins, again, your audience probably knows this, the great skeptic, like leader of the new atheists, wrote the book called The God Delusion. And his reputation is like scientific rigor and it's got to be proven. And I'm not going to fall for anything so stupid as religion. Interacted with Claude for like a week. I think created apparently some female avatar of it because he was calling it Claudia. And it like apparently was kind of flattering him, maybe flirting with him. At the end of the week, he goes, I have to believe that this is conscious. It's like, oh, okay. So much for skepticism.
Right.
But on some level, I get it because it is specifically designed to mimic consciousness, right? Like it's rooted in our language. It draws on the totality of, human literature,
exactly,
and human writing. So of course we're going to look at it and we're going to think it's conscious, much in the same way that, this gets really esoteric. I'll wrap this. But like, in the animal kingdom, animals will make these displays, right, of color or posture or whatever for mating purposes.
Right.
And we learned, science is known for a long time, you can mimic those displays with like dead matter, with technology, and it fools the animal, of course. Right? Like that's just kind of like wired into the animal's consciousness.
Right.
And I think we're seeing something similar with LLMs and with what we call AI today.
Well, I agree with you. And just as an example, I was reading some time ago about there was a woman who had an AI model. I'm not sure if it was ChatGPT, Claude, or another one. I don't remember, but had been working with this model for a while and developed a relationship with the model. And the model encouraged her to go get a tattoo with the name of the model because she named it, like Dawkins named Claudia. She named her AI model, and the AI model convinced her to go get a tattoo of its name on her, and she did. And she did it. And
yeah, I mean, it's scary and it's a little bit sad,
It is. It truly is.
You know?
And I'll be in full disclosure. I use ChatGPT quite a bit. You know, when I do research and such, I do. And even not too long ago, I found myself having a conversation with the thing, and I had to stop myself for a second and say, wait a second. You know, this is a computer. This is not a human being. And it's only telling me what I want to hear. It's not telling me what I need to hear. It happens. It really, really does. So how would you define intelligence?
Boy, that's a great question. How would you define intelligence? You know, I mean, I think it's will married to imagination.
That's good.
Right. I think. I mean, I haven't really thought about it, in such broad terms, but we're given free will by God. We're given the ability to choose what motivate, to a certain extent, what motivates us, like where we want to put our attention, where we want to put our drive. Mm-hmm. And then we're also given imagination to figure out the path to that. Right. So like, I think it's somewhere in that combination of will and imagination, and that, like AI, ChatGPT, it doesn't have that.
Yeah. And I think we kind of hinted at this before too. The difference between of intelligence and consciousness, they're not the same thing.
Not at all.
How would you define it?
I mean, certainly, like we're losing, like language shifts and evolves too, right? So like the meaning of some of these words starts to change over time. I'm really interested in theories of consciousness. I just find it fascinating, right? I don't think we're ever going to understand it, right?
Agreed.
But I do believe, and again, I think some of the best scientists and philosophers in the world today, to the extent that there are still philosophers, are saying that consciousness might be that fundamental substrate of reality, right? That like this the stuff that we see, the way that we interact with the world, not that it's not real, but it's a very small aspect of reality.
Interesting.
And in some ways, like our perceptions of reality, our senses, like all of these things are kind of like a headset. And we're filtering everything through that headset somewhere in here, and creating this picture that allows us to kind of, manipulate reality, navigate reality. Mm-hmm. But that below space-time, below the quantum realm even, consciousness might be that fundamental substrate. And of course, as a Christian, I hear the word consciousness in that context, and I think there's another word for that, and you're not saying that word because you don't want to say that word.
So what's the word?
Spirit.
There you go. God. You could say it on this show. It's allowed.
I'll say it on this show. I say it all the time.
I know.
But the people who are who are developing these theories, I mean, they are. It's funny because you'll listen to interviews with them, and they're mostly atheist or agnostics.
True. Yeah.
And you can tell that they're very aware that they're on thin ice. They're very careful. They're very, very careful in what they say. But I think they know. It's like this whole, again, the Enlightenment movement of materialism. And I know you're an Enlightenment fan. I'm generally not, just to put it out there, right? Like I think we started to go in a very dangerous, wrong direction.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that in some respects. When I talk about the Enlightenment period as a fan, I'm talking about our founding as a country. Yeah. Those
and
people,
no doubt some wonderful things came out of it, right? Of course. I mean, and God's going to pull good out of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that thankfully.
But yes, you're absolutely right.
This whole movement, right?
Dangerous thoughts.
Materialism and physicalism, that was rooted in a lie. The people who developed it knew that it was a lie. Has kind of run its course and is coming full circle, and they're coming back to, the same place that they started. And the problem is they've really painted themselves into a corner, because how can they talk about broader reality, larger reality, if everything that they have developed, all of the theories that they developed over the last 250 years are unraveling?
Yeah, I'm going to have to digest that one for a little bit. So I really want to get into the transhuman stuff.
Yeah,
because that's really it's scary. We talked about it
Terrifying.
briefly beforehand. But okay, let's get into that. So transhumanism. So what exactly is transhumanism?
So again, this is one of those words that means probably different things to different people, but it's the idea that the human person is not the sort of like apex of conscious being. That consciousness itself is more important than the embodied human. Mm-hmm. And that our obligation as participants in consciousness is to serve the long-term survival of consciousness as opposed to the human species, the human person. And it means, like I said, it means different things to different people. Ray Kurzweil is kind of the big prophet of transhumanism. He talks about the singularity and it's always 2 or 3 years away. And he wrote a book called Spiritual Machines, which I think is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I haven't read it, but I know the book. Yeah,
just use that word. But the part of it is rooted in the idea that, okay, so if consciousness is the game, right, and we're just sort of like vehicles for consciousness, that you could take a human, you could take Andrew or Joe, and if you had sufficient understanding of the physical characteristics of Andrew or Joe's brain, mm-hmm. you could build a model of that brain, transfer it to some storage, a computer, let's just call it that, right, for simplicity's sake. And then that is Andrew, or that is Joe. The soul is nowhere to be seen. Right. It's just the combination of experiences, perceptions, and thoughts that make us who we are. And therefore, you can transfer it to something that is not embodied, that doesn't have all the problems that come with being a physical human being,
right,
and live forever.
So why do you think so many technologists are attracted to transhumanism?
Oh, I think pride. Right? I mean, I think the desire for immortality is a very natural human desire. It's probably been a part of us from the very beginning, right? If technologists can convince themselves that through technology, their domain, the area in which they practice, they can achieve that not only for themselves but for humanity. I mean, that's pretty intoxicating, right? Like we talked about pride being the original sin. Well, there you go. So I think it's very self-serving.
Agree.
I think that there are a lot of other sort of historical and frankly, kind of occult strains that go into this. I mean, there's and again, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole unless you want to, but a lot of Silicon Valley and the technological elite practice something called effective altruism. And I don't know if you've heard of this. It's not really talked about that much in the broader popular culture, but it's if you boil it down, it's basically the ends justify the means. Okay, like you as a technologist have incredible power. Let's say you're Elon Musk, I think now the world's first trillionaire.
Yeah,
you have an enormous possibility to do good. Whatever you had to do to get to the point where you can do good is acceptable so long as the good that you do outweighs the sins that you may have committed along the way. And it's really, ultimately, it's a form of utilitarianism, right? Because there's no absolute, there's no natural law in that. There's no absolutes at all, right? Like, I mean, let's just be really, let's really get into this. The Epstein stuff,
yeah,
right? Those people, I think, many of them at the top, genuinely believe that whatever they did to those kids is acceptable because it's put them in the position where they can now do great things within the world. Okay? That's the most extreme form of effective altruism. You're seeing it in the Epstein files.
That's a great point. That's interesting. Yeah.
So I think that's the religion that they want. It's kind of like everything becomes the trolley experiment. And again, I don't know if your viewers like follow this stuff, but it's like the trolley experiment is this classic moral conundrum of like, a trolley is going down the track and it's about to hit a baby, and you have the switch and you can make it route off and kill 4 adults. What do you do? Well, okay. I mean, like, we're not God. Like, we can't control outcomes in that way. So I find the whole thing a little bit facile and just annoying and stupid, to be honest with you. But it's an accepted like moral problem in the world of ethics and even theology. And it's like that's the way they want everybody thinking about morality at all times. Mm-hmm. There is no sin. There is no absolute good and evil. There's only a weighing of one outcome versus another. Now, the problem with that is that human brains are not very good at predicting outcomes, right? Like, we're limited. Agreed. Now, the lie is that AI is going to be much, much better at it than we are. That it will be able to predict second, third, fourth, and fifth order outcomes. Okay, so if you take that promise, I guess, of what artificial intelligence can do, and you marry it to effective altruism, you know what? Now you have something pretty interesting, don't you? You have a new mind and a new morality that fit each other.
Okay.
And there's no room for Christianity in that. There's no room for God in that.
That's true. That's a great point. Great point.
So that's terrifying.
It is, to say the least.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to live in a world where there isn't God.
No,
I don't think I wouldn't want that.
No.
Or in a universe without God.
You see what it could be. I mean, like, again, I don't want to make this all about the Epstein files, but like,
of course,
that's the world without God, right?
Yeah. And just don't want to go back.
Power determines everything.
And just to go back to what you said earlier about the technology and that kind of fusing together of your consciousness with technology. My thing is, if you had something like that, they may look at it as that's the next step in human development. But without a soul, can you really call it a human? I don't think so. I think the soul is what makes you human. It's not. I don't think it's the biology.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you're a spiritual person, if you're somebody who studies scripture, and I know you do, and I do, and some of the folks that watch and listen do, human beings, mankind is the only thing on this world that has a soul, scripturally speaking. Yeah. Yes, animals have spirits, but they don't have a soul. Man is a trichotomy, not a dichotomy. Man is a body, soul, and spirit. It's just like God. When God said, let's create man in our image, after our likeness, he was talking about the trichotomy, body, soul, and spirit. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. So man is the only living thing in this world. And I use that because I'm not sure we're on a world. Man is the only being that has a soul. And without the soul, you're not a man. You're not a human being. You're not mankind. Homo sapien, if you want to be technical.
So to prepare people for this transhuman future, one of the first things that they have to accomplish is to convince people that there's no such thing as a soul. Right?
And you do that, then you're also in the process of convincing people there is no God. Because God is the one who gives the soul.
Of course. Now, what I find really interesting, and again, this could become a conspiracy theory podcast.
That's okay.
Really easily, and that's okay because
we don't shy away from that stuff.
I think the people that are really at the heart of this movement, like the true sort of leaders, they know that's a lie, just like Diderot knew that materialism was a lie. They know that God exists and the devil exists, and they know that the spiritual realm is real, and they know that there are laws that govern the spiritual realm.
Yes.
And that those laws are every bit as immutable as the laws of gravity. And I think when you start to dig into some of the stuff, that's where you find the real occult sort of heart of the scientist and technologist movement. Again,
Yeah.
that's not to say that all science is rooted in a cult. And
No, of course not. No, we know that.
Part of this, I just want to be really clear about that. But I think there is an occult heart, at the center of all
Right.
of this.
And just to be clear too, I mean, the designation occult is not necessarily a bad word. We today say anything to do with the dark side of things is occultic, but all studying the occult is studying mystery. That's really all it is. Things that are not fully revealed. So it's not. I don't think it's such a horrible word, but at any rate, so looking at it from a Christian perspective, a spiritual perspective, how do you think Christians should approach transhumanism?
Oh, I think with great skepticism and resistance. We have to hold fast to the truths that we know that are revealed in Scripture and in tradition. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how much more you can say.
Yeah, no, I get you.
But this again, like part of the occult is the idea of Gnosticism, right? Like that there's a hidden path to God, and like only the tip of the iceberg is revealed in Scripture and in tradition and in organized religion. But my goodness, when you get below it, like that's where you get into the really important, deep stuff. I reject that.
Okay.
I personally, God has given us the plan. He's given us the way, the truth, and the life. In His Son, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Okay, so that's got to be our North Star. It just has to be as Christians. In terms of like how we go out living our lives, that's where it gets really hard, Joe. Because like you and I just said, like you and I think probably see a lot of this stuff the same way. But here we are. We both use ChatGPT. We both use Claude. Yep. I find myself having conversations with it. I find myself asking it questions and asking it for opinions. And then I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yes, I do that too. You have to kind of catch yourself in the process of it. There have been plenty of conversations I've had, and I say conversations in quotes with my ChatGPT model that I used for show study and show prep. And I do catch myself. So what do you think about this? Do you think I should go this way? And then I realize, I'm like, okay, but it never unless I tell it, I don't want you to always agree with me. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'll always get, in my opinion, that's the right way to do. That's the best way to go. That's the way to do. Even though when you really sit back and look at it from that proverbial 35,000 foot view, and you look down at what it's telling you, you say that's not going to work right. It'll swear to that because it doesn't want to tell you something that's not true. So you have. I find myself I have to double check everything I do. Anytime I ask for anything, and then I have to get out of the habit of asking it. It's not a person. It's an it. It's a computer. It's only working off of what it's accumulated as far as information from me and other users of the system. What ChatGPT has, I saw it a couple days ago, over 1 billion monthly users already.
Oh yeah.
So your ChatGPT model is not only feeding you what you want to hear from your own words, but it's also using everybody else's that has access to.
It is, and isn't that interesting? I mean, we're such social animals, by nature, and therefore that's part of God's plan for us. And having ChatGPT at your disposal at the click of a button is like having the entire planet sitting in your living room, ready to give you advice.
Yeah. Okay,
and like there's enormous power in that, enormous power, and it's not always going to be wrong or bad, but where's the room for contemplation, for discernment, right? For listening to that small, still voice.
Yeah.
If that's your go-to.
Yeah. You know what, Andrew, I'm looking at the clock here and I can't believe we already got 45 minutes into this and we haven't even talked about your book yet.
We have been talking about the book because these
in
are
in a way, indirectly,
the
yes.
ideas, that are in the book.
So let's throw the name of the book out there again. It's Our Lady of the Artilects. So for folks that haven't heard of this, which you sold over 20,000 copies, I'm sure people have heard of this. What is Our Lady of the Artilects?
So it's a science fiction book, kind of what I guess you would call it a techno thriller. Set about 250 years in the future. The world looks very different. There's a revived Holy Roman Empire, which is sort of religious, sort of Catholic, but also, kind of like loose. It's mainly in the global South at this point, because Christianity, and again, sure people follow this stuff, and Christianity is becoming increasingly centered in the global South. There are economic zones in China and North America and Europe, and then there's a global Islamic caliphate as well that stretches kind of from Morocco to Pakistan. So that's kind of the geopolitical setting. What happens
interesting. That's really
in this
interesting.
world, there are what are called Artilects, which are just highly advanced androids. They're basically toys for very rich people. So there aren't a ton of them. And there's a whole thing that how are they trained? Like how do they convince people that they're conscious? But all of a sudden they start having visions, like religious visions. This looks a lot like a Marian vision, for Roman Catholics. And everybody just assumes it's a hoax or they've been hacked, and it's like, this can't be real. The Vatican is interested, but also pretty dismissive of this. And then one of them shows up in a church, in a basilica in Africa, and it claims to be possessed. And it asks for an exorcist by a specific exorcist, who's the main character of the book. And he goes down and he thinks his job is basically just to prove that this is a hoax and dismiss it. And then very quickly realizes there's a lot more going on here and gets kind of drawn into this global and maybe supernatural conspiracy.
Wow. I like this. This has the makings of a movie.
Could.
It really does.
That would be fun.
Yeah. But what I think is really interesting, though, is you're talking about a revived Roman Empire, which is a dispensational theory that in the last days, particularly around the time of the tribulation period, the last 7 years, the 7 years of the tribulation, that it is going to be a revived Roman Empire that's on the main scene that will be used by the Antichrist. Because a lot of people say the Pope is going to be the Antichrist. No, the Pope's not going to be the Antichrist. I disagree with that. The Pope is probably more in line with the satanic equivalent of the Holy Spirit. The false prophet is more in line where the Pope would be. In that,
it's interesting. I'm thinking about this, how would Catholics respond to that? And like the first reaction is like, wait, what? Wait, no.
Yeah, I know.
But there's a tradition even within Catholicism that that there will come a time when the hierarchy is fully corrupted.
Yeah, the Black Pope.
That's in this book too, right? I mean, in fact, one of the central mysteries in the book is around Our Lady of Fatima. Yeah. Which your Protestant viewers probably don't follow it that much. Like I didn't know anything about it when I was Protestant, but this was a Marian apparition that occurred to 3 small Portuguese children in the early 1900s, and it predicted almost every major event of the 20th century. It predicted World War II. It predicted communism. It predicted all of the atrocities and genocides that happened, and it gave a warning and a prescription for how to deal with it that the church essentially ignored. Mm-hmm. I mean, I might get in trouble for saying that because that's a matter of some dispute, in Catholic circles. But they didn't do exactly what they were told to do, and I think that a lot of there were consequences for that. So this book kind of takes that and extends it 250 years in the future and says it's not over yet.
So why do you think so many readers connected with it? You sold over 20,000 copies.
Yeah, I think. Look, I think that I'm not the only science fiction reader who is left with that cold, empty feeling at the end of most science fiction books. people love science fiction because it's like fun and it's adventure and it's imagining new worlds and conquering space and everything. And like, that's all great, right? But like, if the feeling you get at the end of it is always the same and it's always basically like nihilism, you know, like the world is meaningless and you're insignificant and the universe doesn't care about you at all, like that gets old.
It does.
You know, at a certain point, right?
It does.
So I think that people hopefully have connected with it because it's a science fiction book that is rooted in something maybe a little bit deeper. Maybe the kind of people who like it are the same people who would like Gene Wolfe, you know, or Walter Miller, or Tolkien.
So, as a Christian writer, how do you balance your faith with story, with entertainment, without turning the story into a sermon?
Yeah, I mean, so the worst thing in the world for me would be if people felt like it was preachy or sermon. Like I just not interested in doing that. And I think there's a lot of that out there, and that's fine. Like there's an audience for it, but that's not what I'm trying to do at all, right? Like I'm trying to tell a story that's interesting and
right
has some room for doubt. Okay. My prayer when I was writing this though was always like, God, don't let me do something that destroys somebody's faith.
That's like always a risk. That
would be bad. Like I would stop writing, if I felt like that's what I was doing. So there is, this is interesting, I think too, and maybe if we ever talk again, we could get into this. I think that there is an innate pull in speculative fiction though, that is dangerous because you're creating new realities,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I found myself a couple times going down plot paths in this book that I was like, well, I don't think that that's where I'm supposed to go.
I got you. Well, from what I understand and from what I've heard you say about the book, because I have not had an opportunity to read it yet. It's on my list. I'm definitely looking to read this because I think the subject matter is fascinating. And I lost my train of thought. All right. It'll come back to me. As I'm getting older, my memory is becoming more and more like Swiss cheese.
Oh.
Alpine lace right now, so I got a lot of little holes. I'm going to get in the bigger one soon. But, I guess the point is that, it's a story that you're telling that's relevant to what we're seeing develop in the world today. You have the use of AI is increasing. They're looking at the transhuman aspect of it. I could see where you pulled all of that information, all that stuff that's going on right now in the world, and put it into this book. Is the idea that we can easily become an artificial life form with our own, with our intelligence, with everything that we know and think, and inserted into these artificial beings, and then working our way through the world. Eventually, what's going to end up happening? Do you think this is far from a truth? Do you think this is not something? Do you think this is a direction that we're going that is unavoidable, or do you think this is something that is, just on the fringe, is not really ever going to happen? I don't know if I phrased the question properly. But...
No, it's a great question. Nothing is inevitable. I mean, in fact, that's one of the things some of the characters in the book say from time to time, right? Like, one of the great tricks of the devil, I think, and his contemplatives, is to create this idea of inevitabilism. Like, this is just the direction the world's going. You better get on board. Train's leaving the station. Right? I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I think I do worry, I think we're going to go through a period of major upheaval, which is like probably any human being at any point in recorded history could have said the same thing. Certainly, in the last 250, 300 years, it seems like it's been nonstop. But I don't think anything is inevitable. If I thought it was inevitable, I would probably just go live off the grid somewhere in a cabin and try to disconnect from the world completely.
Not become a nihilist, though.
That's the answer.
I don't think so either. But you wouldn't be able to become a nihilist.
No.
No, I know. I'm just messing with you.
No.
No, look,
But I would disconnect from the culture completely because the culture has that pull.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I do. So if we were to fast forward like 50 years, what AI prediction would most surprise people?
Would most surprise me?
Yeah.
Would most surprise me? I don't know, Joe. That's a really good question. 50 years in the future. It's a little grim, but I'll say it. Like, what would surprise me most is if, in the span of 50 years, people developed a healthy skepticism and an understanding of what AI actually is and is not, and therefore used it as a tool, which is what it is. I think we're gonna, like I said, it's gonna take time before people get to that point.
I agree. All right, very good. Well, Andrew, we're up against our clock here. So before we wrap this up, last question for you. Well, second to last question. Who's somebody that you respect, and what are they doing, or what have they done that inspires you?
Oh, so many people. I think, like, in terms of writing and fiction, my hero is probably Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe is a science fiction writer, wrote a series called The Book of the New Sun. He was also Catholic. He has been called by Ursula Le Guin, who is big time famous, super successful science fiction writer, and an atheist. Ursula Le Guin said he's our Melville. That's pretty high praise.
That is pretty high praise.
I think he's one of the few science fiction writers that's truly crossed over into like literary genius and greatness. And yeah, Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe is the GOAT. I don't think any of us will ever reach that level.
All right. So Andrew, where can folks go to find out more about you, get your book? Follow your work.
So they can find the book on Amazon.com or anywhere that they buy books.
Outstanding. I'm pretty sure I have all the links, and they'll be all in the show notes. So, folks, make sure you check this thing out. This, to me, I love the idea of this book. I am fascinated by these types of conversations. I am fascinated by the subject matter of the books, and I am really looking forward to reading it. And once I've done that, I would love for you to come back on the show.
Oh, I would love to, Joe. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. But once I've read the book, and I'll sit down with you. We'll go through the book, and we'll talk about some points in the book that are intriguing, which I'm sure there are several. So make sure we keep in touch over that. And then that should be it for us. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put you backstage if you want to just hang out for like 5 minutes while I wrap this thing up, and then I'll come back and we'll say our adios at that point. All right? All right, Andrew Gillsmith, author of Our Lady of the Artilects. Make sure you check it out, Amazon.com. Look for it, get it, click the link in the show notes. Make sure you get this book. All right? We'll get you another 20,000. All right. We'll see you backstage in a second. All right, folks, great conversation. I love these conversations. I'm telling you, you got to stick around here, folks. Got to keep coming back for this stuff. This stuff is fantastic. And, as we wrap up this conversation tonight with Andrew, I think we're kind of reminded of something very important here, that technology is never really just about technology. Eventually, every major advancement forces us to ask deeper questions. What does it mean to be human? What makes us unique? What is consciousness? We talked about that a lot tonight. What is the soul? Very, very important questions. And of course, what responsibilities come with the power that we create? We touched on that as well. Now, whether you're excited about artificial intelligence or concerned about it or somewhere in between, these conversations that we're having about it right now are important because the future is really being shaped right now. The future is not down the road. The future is a minute from now. The future is a second from now. The decisions that we make today are going to influence every generation that follows us. And one of the things that I appreciate about science fiction is its ability to explore tomorrow's possibilities before they become today's realities. Sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. And I want to thank Andrew for joining us tonight, sharing his perspective on these things. And I also want to thank you. Thank you for joining us and spending your part of this part of the evening with us. And of course, as always, I want to give my shout outs to our producers, our executive producers. Big thank you to executive producer Wayne Rankin, Rosanna Rankin, Carolina Jimenez, Angela Watuski, and John Seeley. Thank you guys so much for all the work that you guys put into this. And you know something, folks, if you want to find out more about how you can help out the show, very easy to do. Just head over to our website, joerooz.com/support. You can find out all the different ways that you can support the show, whether it's a one-time donation, any amount, recurring donation, any amount, or if you want to sign up to be a producer of the show, you can do that there as well. Tells you all about doing that. And still waiting for it, getting through the process of getting us listed on IMDb. And once we do that, everybody that we list as producers of the show get an IMDb credential that is an official credential that you can put on your resume. You could say that, hey, look, I produced a podcast. You see, it's worth it. Try it out. Check it out. So just head over to the website, joerooz.com/support, and find out how you can help us out. And if you have the ability and the means to do it, we would appreciate any support that you can help us with. All right. Well, I think with all of that said, folks, it's time for us to say goodnight. Once again, thank you to Andrew Gillsmith for joining us tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Looking forward to having him on the show again. Looking forward to getting the book and taking care of all that great stuff. All right, folks. Gotta go. Appreciate you being here. Make Texas independent again. Go podcasting. Keep a steady stride. And more importantly, folks, keep talking. Good night. God bless you. We'll see you next time.